Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from OnlinePhotographyTraining.com. Welcome to my video series, Mastering Lightroom Classic CC. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate the spot removal tool. The spot removal tool is the second tool from the left in the tool well. You could activate it by simply clicking on it or by using the keyboard shortcut of Q. And once it's activated, you'll notice it's a relatively simple tool in that there's only 3 sliders. But don't let that fool you. You could do a lot with this tool. And I'm going to be going over everything you could do with this tool in this video. And those of you that are new to my videos, you may want to have a pen and piece of paper handy to take notes, because I'll be offering a lot of tips and tricks and keyboard shortcuts as we go along. Also, in the description below this video, you'll find a link to my website where you could download a free PDF of all the hundreds of keyboard shortcuts that are found in Lightroom. Now, as far as this image is concerned, to begin with, I did do some basic panel adjustments, and I covered that 2 videos ago, and I also did lens corrections, and I will cover that in a future video. Now I'm ready to remove some spots. As you can see, the image has a lot of spots. Spot removal tool, as its name implies, is great for removing spots, sensor spots, or in the case of this image, water droplets that got on the lens or on the filter. I used a 15-second exposure and an ND filter, and it was windy, and some water mist got on the filter. Easily removed with the spot removal tool. You also could use the spot removal tool to clone something out. You have something unwanted in the image. There's some garbage down here on the ground. So you could get rid of something like that. We're going to demonstrate all of that. Now, I mentioned the tool looks simple. There's really only 3 sliders, but you can do a lot. And also, there's 2 brushes. There is the clone brush and the heal brush. The clone brush works best when you want to remove an object, like garbage or something like that. The heal brush works best, in my opinion, on sensor spots, water droplets, blemishes on a person's face, smaller things that you want to kind of heal, kind of blend a little better so it looks more natural. That's when the heal brush shines. Now, I'm going to start out with the clone brush because I could better show you some things that the brush does and some attributes of the brush. Now, whenever you have an image, sometimes it's difficult to see the spots. And one of the ways to better see the spots is to zoom in. Now, typically in Lightroom, to zoom in, you simply click on the image and you'll zoom in. But when you have a tool open and your cursor turns into that tool, you can't zoom in by simply clicking on the mouse because I'd be removing a spot. So instead of closing down the tool, clicking on the image to zoom in, then opening up the tool to do your work, what you could do instead is hold the space bar in of your keyboard while that tool is open. When I hold the space bar in, the cursor turns into that little magnifying glass. Now, when I click on the image, I'll zoom in, let go of the space bar, my tool's back. When I'm ready to zoom out, I hold that space bar again, click again to zoom out. Also, while I'm zoomed in, if I want to drag the image around, hold the space bar in, and then I could drag the image around with the left mouse button. Now, another way to better visualize spots is located down at the bottom in the toolbar. Below your image, but above the film strip, is this little strip of real estate. That is called the toolbar. If you don't see that, hit the T key on your keyboard, T for toolbar. It'll toggle that bar off and on. So make sure you're seeing the toolbar, and then towards the left of the toolbar, you'll see there's a little checkbox called Visualize Spots. When I click that, you'll notice the image turns into this black and white rendition, but you could see that I very readily see spots up there in the sky. Now, once you do that, sometimes you may find that it's not showing the spots clearly enough. And you may need to come over to the slider that is next to that checkbox, move it to the right to make it more sensitive. Other times you'll find that there's just too much noise bleeding through and you need to make it less sensitive, then move that slider to the left till you've isolated the spots nicely. Now you could come in here and just click away and remove the spots, and when you're done, click on this little box to turn that mode off. Now I mentioned that there's two brushes. We're using that clone brush, and I want to better show you some of the attributes of the brush in general and exactly what the clone brush does specifically. Now I'm going to hold the spacebar and we're going to click to zoom in right here. Now you'll notice the brush is actually two circles. There's that inner circle and that outer circle. The inner circle is the actual brush, and you usually want that part a little larger than the spot you're going to remove. And you could change the size of the brush one of three ways, or any of three ways. You could use this slider to change the size of the entire brush, or you could use the bracket keys on your keyboard. The right bracket key makes the brush larger, the left bracket key makes it smaller. The final way you could change the size of the brush is with your mouse, if your mouse is equipped with a center click wheel, or if you're using an Apple Magic Mouse. Simply spin that wheel or drag your finger on the Apple Magic Mouse and you will affect the size of the brush. Now I mentioned that you'd like the brush, that little part, a little bigger than the spot, and that works well right there. So we'll click once, and you can see Lightroom will automatically go to an area that it thinks has good pixels. So you'll see there's two circles where we clicked, and this second circle over here, and you can see there's an arrow. So it's taking these pixels, sampling them, and then putting them over there to remove the spot. Sometimes, many times, some would argue most of the time, Lightroom doesn't sample a good spot. So you could do, what you could do is hover over the second circle, the source area. That's called the source circle. Hover over that, and your cursor turns into that little hand. Then drag it around wherever you want. And as you go, you'll get a preview, and you could better see, in the preview meaning right here, what it will look like. You can see that's not a good area, so you move it around till you like it. Now, this is the clone brush, and I mentioned the clone brush doesn't do as good a job on sensor spots or water droplets or blemishes as the heel brush does. Well, what exactly does the clone brush do? Well, if I take this and sample it, or take this sample area and put it right over the grain elevator, you'll notice it's actually copying the pixels that are right here and putting them over here. So I'm cloning. And I mentioned before, this works best when you want to replace something in the image. Let's say you have a picture and it has garbage on a sidewalk, and you want to replace the garbage with sidewalk. You would click on the garbage, then you would move the source circle to the part of the sidewalk that matches in tone and color. And also you might have to line up some lines in the sidewalk, cracks in the sidewalk, things like that. So it will help you better match it to replace that garbage. Now, you'll notice the center is very dark and it fades out as it goes out, and that's where the feathering comes in. Right now I'm feathering at its maximum 100. If I move this to 0, you can see it's like a cookie cutter cutout. So feathering helps you blend it better into your image, and the feathering is the same for clone or heel. It just helps make it, feathered in a little better. Opacity, right now it's at 100%, so we're actually seeing it as dark and solid as possible. If I start moving that to the left, you can see how the opacity goes down till I'm at 1. It's just about 100% gone. It's actually 99% gone. Usually when you're removing spots or removing an object, you want opacity at 100, but there may be times where moving it just a little lower helps you blend everything together a little better. So you'll experiment with opacity. Now, the feathering slider and the opacity slider do the exact same thing no matter which brush you use. I'm demoing the clone brush at the moment. If I click on the heel brush, you'll notice that that looks totally different. And what that's doing is it's taking the texture from the source, but it's using the color and luminance values of the actual area where we're replacing as the pixels. So it's just moving the texture over here, but keeping the color and the brightness the same. And that, I mentioned again, is better for spots, whether sensor spots, water spots, and better for blemishes on skin. So you could experiment and see which works best for you. Now, of course, I'm not going to sample over here. For this image, I'm going to move it over here. And you can't really tell, but usually I keep feathering up between 80 and 90. I found that usually works pretty well. Sometimes I'll bring it up higher or lower if needed, and I usually will have opacity at 100. So that's the two different brushes, and that's feathering and opacity on these brushes. So for this specific image, I'll hold the spacebar in and click once. What I would typically probably do in my workflow is immediately notice all these water drops and want to get rid of them. So I would click on Visualize Spots so I could better see them. I would adjust the slider as needed. I would use the heel brush. Then I would get a brush that is just a little bigger, that center circle is just a little bigger than the actual spot I want to remove. And then I would just simply come in here and click away. And just come through and remove everyone I see, just like that. Then I would turn this black and white mode off, or the Visualize Spots mode off, by clicking on that checkbox again and double checking. Then sometimes I would hold the space bar in, click and zoom in, and keep the space bar held in and drag the image around to see if I see any more. And you can see I could see two there. So hopefully you could see that in the video. They're very faint. And then I would also click on those. And then when I'm done with the tool, I'll zoom back out by holding the space bar in and click. And I decide I'm done, just close the tool down, and you're done. Now you may have noticed, though, while the tool is active and open, if I hover over the image, we have these overlays. These overlays go away when I come off the image. Well, you could control that behavior down here on the toolbar. At the far left, you'll see it says Tool Overlay. Right now, I'm in auto mode. That means when I hover over the spots, or the actual overlays for the spots, appear. When I come off, they disappear. There's several other modes you could use, though. One is Always. That means they'll always show, whether I'm hovering over the image or not. The next is Selected. Only the active spot will be showing. All the others won't show. In this case, I don't have an active one because I removed all those spots, closed the tool down, then reopened the tool. So to make one active, what I'll do is I'll go to Always mode. I could go to auto mode as well and just click on one. When I hover over one, you could see how it kind of gets brighter. Then I could click on it. Now that one is active. So when I go to Selected mode, that is the one that's only showing. None of the others will show. And I'd have to go over here to this drop down and go to either Auto or Always to see all the other ones. And finally, we have Never mode. So they're never showing. Usually you'd like to use this mode if you have spots that are very close together. Because if you have spots that are very close together, your overlays will get in the way. You'll notice as I approach this overlay, the cursor changes into the hand, and I could make the overlay larger or smaller, or the spot removal area larger or smaller also. But I can't remove another spot. So if I had a spot right there, I can't get at it because the brush is going away and I'm going into this other mode. In that case, you'd want to use Never mode, and then you could come in there and remove that spot very easily. Personally, I prefer auto mode. It's really just subjective, whatever you like better. Now, there's a couple other little tricks I want to show you, and I don't want any of these spots active at the moment, so I'll just close the tool down. It's the easiest way to do that, so they're not active. What I want to do is I want to remove this garbage down here. You notice on all the spots I did so far, I just clicked once. Well, you don't have to click. You could actually draw. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold the space bar in and click on this. And I'm going to go to clone mode for this demonstration. And I'm going to just draw like right there, like that. And you can see I sampled down here, and you can see it looks horrible, right? So I'm going to zoom out by holding the space bar in and clicking with the left mouse button. And I'm going to drag this somewhere that I think might look a little better. Like right, not there. You could just move it around. You could painstakingly do this so it looks a little best. And let's zoom in. That looks horrible, I'm sure. Actually, it doesn't look that bad as you look at it. It kind of looks like this one is broke off. So that works. Once you do it though, you could come in with the feathering and feather it a little differently to try to get it to blend in a little better, or use the opacity slider to try to get it to blend in a little better and go from there. So again, the reason why I'm showing you that though is you don't have to just click once. You could draw. There's another thing you could do is you could draw a straight line. This comes in handy if you have a power line going through your image and you want to get rid of the power line, or you have a telephone pole or something, anything that's long and straight and you need to get it out of the image. What you would do is you would go to one far end of that object. Let's just pretend that there was a power line going through here. What I would do is go to the far end, in this case the left side, and I'll click once. Now it's going to sample a spot. Don't worry about that. Once it samples that spot, go to the other end of your object. In this case, I'll go to the far right. Hold the Shift key in on your keyboard. When you hold the Shift key in, then click one more time. And you'll notice that you drew a straight line, and it resampled a straight line down here. So it's a super easy way to replace those power lines that are in an image or anything that's like that that you need to get rid of in a scene. So that's one thing. Now the last thing I really want to show you is, you see I have all these spots I removed. Let's just say I want to start over. If I want to start over, I could click reset right here and it will remove everything. So it's removed all my spot removals. So the spots are going to reappear. Let's say though that I want to keep this one, but I want to get rid of all these other ones and redo them because I didn't like what I did. So I mean, this you won't use that often. You want to remove these. So let's say I want to remove this line I just put in here. Make it active. When I hover over it, let's say I'm going to make that one active. So I'm going to hover over it. You can see there's a little button there. I'm going to hover over that and just click on it. So that's now active. And I could hit the delete key on my keyboard. So I undid what I did, basically. I undid that spot removal. Now, if I want to remove this one, I could click on it so it's active and hit the delete key. Well, that's removing them one by one. I could remove them quicker. And the way to do that, let's say I want to remove everything to the right of the building, including this one. What I'm going to do, now this isn't removing the spots, this is removing the work we just did, okay? So I want to make that clear. In a previous, reason I'm doing that is in a previous video, I implied that that's a way to remove spots. It isn't the way to remove spots. It's a way to remove the work you did to remove the spots. Hope that made sense. All right, what we're going to do that is hold the Alt or Option key in. It's Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac, and you'll see the cursor turns into a little pair of scissors. So go outside the realm of this one and above the realm of that one and this one. So way up towards the top, I'll go there and I'll click with my left mouse button, hold it in. You can see all those little buttons appear to showing me those are areas that I remove spots. I'm going to just draw out and I'll get this rectangle. Make sure everything I want to remove is inside of that rectangle, and then let go of the left mouse button. And it removed all the work we just did and our spots have returned. So again, that's not something you probably would use often, but for completeness of the video, I wanted to make sure I showed you it. Now you may have noticed, and it's going to bother me if I don't mention it. Before I went down here to remove this garbage that was down here, I had an active spot right here. And I closed this tool down and then reopened it so it wasn't active anymore. The reason why I did that is because I was in heal mode. And I wanted to then come down here and do something in clone mode. If I simply went down here and changed to clone mode, because this is active, it's going to turn that brush into a clone brush. And you can see how poorly it removed that spot. I may not have noticed it right away because I was zoomed in to remove whatever was down here in clone mode. So be aware of that if you're removing multiple spots and you're switching between clone and heal mode, whatever is your last active spot will get switched when you switch between the two brushes. Now I'll go back to heal mode and you'll see that now that's a heal brush. So deselect that. The easiest way is just to close the tool and reopen it. And I'm sure there must be an easier way that I'm not aware of to do that. And then you could come in and add another brush that is different than that one. So if I wanted to add the clone brush, now when I click on it, it didn't do anything there. So I could come in here and clone that out. And you could see it sampled water. We don't want to sample water. So you could sample something else like that. So that is everything and probably too much that you need to know about the spot removal tool in Lightroom. Thank you everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.